The Circuit de Barcelona Catalonia served up an absolute classic for the final Spanish Grand Prix to be held at this venue. We will, of course, see it next year, thankfully, but this is the final one that will be known as the Spanish Grand Prix held at this circuit. As we move to the Mad Ring next year, this was an absolutely mad race in the end. The final stages of this one were absolutely incredible. It was very much a slow burner, strategic kind of race for the most part, which I like. You know, it's interesting at the end of the day. We had a few different drivers who were kind of jostling for the victory, but in the end, in those final few laps, when the safety car came out after Kimi Andrea Antonelli, obviously his car broke down the Mercedes. Again, another mechanical failure for him and his Mercedes. That's 2 in the last 3 races. Obviously not his fault. That's the fault of the car and the team, but really bad for them, obviously. But it served up an absolute chaos multiplier at the end. So let's dive in, guys. 5 things that we learned from this race. I'll go through it as quick as I can because, yeah, controversial. One thing very controversial, which I will touch on at the end of this video. But first of all, McLaren 1-2. McLaren were absolutely dominant in this one. There were times when it looked as though perhaps Charles Leclerc, perhaps Max Verstappen on a slightly different tyre strategy could have changed things up, could have challenged for the victory. But in the end, Norris and Piastri were absolutely clear in this one. Verstappen did get ahead of Lando Norris off of the line. He got up into P2 ahead of the second Papaya car, but eventually Norris didn't even need to use the undercut to try and get past. And Verstappen was on a different tyre strategy anyway, so, you know, he would have got past him anyway. He was doing one more stop, was Max Verstappen, than his competitors. So, yeah, absolutely dominant for McLaren. Piastri never looked challenging this one. 5 victories this season already. 8 podiums in a row. He only missed out in his home race at the start of this season, Albert Park. Ever since then, he has been on the podium every single Grand Prix, and most of those on the top step as well. So, yeah, that leading the championship does extend to 10 points now for Oscar Piastri over Lando Norris, but it's still very close as we head into the next round in 2 weeks' time in Canada. We got a Ferrari on the podium as well. It's rare that we get Ferrari on the podium, but they absolutely earned it today. Charles Leclerc was absolutely fantastic. He was behind Sir Lewis Hamilton earlier on in the race. He was team ordered to allow him to go past because he was the faster of the 2 drivers by some margin at that point. He stopped late on for soft tyres like quite a few drivers did. He overtook Max Verstappen for 3rd place, and he kept it from there. He absolutely deserved it today. Ferrari, not quite Ferrari's back, but they look good today. Their race pace was excellent, like we saw at Imola as well. So qualifying not quite on the same level, but in the race where the points are handed out, Ferrari looked very quick. And now the biggest surprise result of today has to be, without a doubt, Nico Hülkenberg, P5. No, I'm not joking. Hülkenberg got 5th in a Sauber. He was 6th on the track. There was a penalty for a driver ahead. Again, like I said, we will talk about him, don't worry. But Hülkenberg overtook Sir Lewis in the last stages of the race to get all the way up to 6th on the circuit. Those soft tyres working an absolute treat for him. Incredible. Just like in Australia, he capitalised on the chaos around him. He didn't need wet weather to do it this time. He did it just on pure pace. To be fair, the Saubers looked very good this weekend, but Hülkenberg was out in Q1. He was not looking particularly quick in qualifying. His teammate Gabriel Bortoleto looked as though he might get some points, as he actually started in 12th position, but he actually ended up in 12th position by the end, which is one of the very few drivers to finish where they started today. But yeah, Hulk on an absolute rampage, and unless I'm mistaken, I think that might mean that Sauber are off the bottom of the Constructors' Championship. I will have to check that at a later date, but that could well send Alpine to 10th and last. Oh my god, honestly, Alpine, they just can't get any worse, can they? But they are doing a very good job of trying it. And it was points as well for Aston Martin. Aston Martin only had one of their drivers in the race today. Lance Stroll, of course, had to withdraw due to wrist injuries, as I covered in another video as well. Hopefully he'll be back in a couple of weeks' time for his home race in Canada. But at their other driver's home race, Fernando Alonso, he's done it! Points! P9! Finally! It's taken so long. He was 10th on the track. Again, moved up because of a penalty for a guy ahead of him. We'll talk about him in the last thing we learned. But yeah, Alonso, he did not have it easy today. He made some mistakes. He actually made a bit of a rookie error, to be honest. He went wide at turn 5, whatever it is, the left-hander at the start of the second sector, whichever corner number it is. I do believe it's turn 5. Could be wrong, though. But yeah, no, fantastic job for him to get that in the end. They really, really needed that Aston Martin. They need that in their battle with the likes of Sauber, the likes of Alpine, the likes of Haas as well. You know, it's very tight at the bottom of the constructors right now, and that very much seems like it's in a state of flux. But he's finally done it. It's off the bottom. It's not going to be his worst season ever. It's official. But let's talk about the final thing. There was a late race penalty for who? Max Verstappen. So Verstappen was the closest challenger to the McLarens through the majority of the race. The late safety car meant that everybody had to pit pretty much. Even McLaren, even though they double stacked, did come into the pits. Now, most drivers, because there wasn't many laps left, went for the soft tyre. I think a few might have gone for the medium tyre as well. Just a couple of them didn't have some fresh soft tyres. And even those that didn't have fresh softs, most of them used a set of tyres that had done a few laps in qualifying, so they were just a scrub set. Verstappen, according to his team, and he did question it on the radio, said that he only had a set of hard tyres, which, yes, is very good for a long stint, but you don't want to be using them over a quick sprint at the end of the race. They're very hard to fire up, and the potential performance in them is nowhere near the softs. I mean, we were talking about undercuts of like 2.5 seconds, according to Bernie Collins on the Sky Sports coverage today. So yeah, not ideal really at that point. Now, when the restart happened, Verstappen got an absolute tank slap and a half coming out of the final corner, trying to get the power on. There was some contact between Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen as a result of that, and at the time of recording, as I record this immediately after the race, this is 4 p.m. UK time on the dot, I'm actually recording this, you know, that incident is under investigation. I don't really expect anything to happen with that. You know, that's just one of them things. A very fast car in the form of Charles Leclerc on some fresh soft tyres, and a relatively slow car in the form of Max Verstappen's Red Bull on the hards. However, there was controversy after that. So basically, there was George Russell who was behind the pair of them and saw an opportunity to overtake Max Verstappen, to kind of follow in the wake of Charles Leclerc. He threw it down the inside into the first corner, made contact, and had to go over the escape route. There's a little escape route basically that goes over turns 1, 2, and then you rejoin part of the way through turn 3, which George Russell did. You know, for me, I must admit, I am with Nico Rosberg on this one. But I do agree that I would say, I mean, I will do a full in-depth analysis, by the way, of this, guys. I will do a separate video, but basically, Russell rejoined. Red Bull said to Max Verstappen, you need to let George Russell through, a decision that personally I didn't agree with. I don't think that Verstappen had to give that up. You know, you had a guy trying to desperately overtake with a lunge and failed to do so, and he went off the track as a result. That's kind of a you problem really for George Russell, but his team told him let him through. So Verstappen was not very happy about that, understandably. And then again through turn 5 or turn 6, whichever the one is that where Alonso went off earlier in the race, he basically just drove into him. You know, he looked like he was going to give George Russell room round the outside, slowing down to let him get past, and Verstappen just drove into him. Now, listen, I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of that because that's a separate video I will also bring out for you guys here, but the end result of it was that Verstappen eventually did let George Russell get past eventually, and he got a 10-second penalty for his trouble, did Max Verstappen, in the eyes of the stewards. So he dropped from P4 all the way down to P10. His worst result in a race when actually finishing it in 8 years. His worst result in a Grand Prix, when actually finishing the Grand Prix itself, in 8 years, since 2017. And I think that was the Spanish Grand Prix 2017, although I could be wrong with that. But yeah, controversial to say the least. But McLaren are flying after this triple header as we are getting ready to head over to North America. Canada is coming up in a few weeks' time. Montreal, the circuit Gilles Villeneuve. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. The other thing we learned as well is that I've rearranged my office today, so I'm sorry if I'm looking a bit hot and bothered. I've been desperately trying to get everything rearranged before this race. There's a few reasons why I've done this. I'm not going to get into that in that video, but yeah, hopefully the lighting and stuff's a little bit better in this one. That's the main reason why I've done this. But yeah, it will be a bit more tidier, obviously, when everything's all kind of organised and everything, because there's absolute chaos around it. If you guys could see my landing where all the stuff is, there's so many books and stuff, games and things like that. It's ridiculous. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Hope you enjoyed the Spanish Grand Prix this weekend. And like I said, I will be bringing out an in-depth video going over that Max Verstappen incident very shortly as well. Have a great time, guys. See you very soon. Like, share, comment, subscribe if you want to see more of this. Have a great time.